Section 5 of The Dream of the Red Chamber, Book 1. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Li Jing. The Dream of the Red Chamber, Book 1, by Cao Xueqin. Translated by Henry Bancroft Jolly. Chapter 2, Part 2. Yü Cun, having listened to these remarks, observed, "However can it be possible that families of such education and refinement can observe any system of training and nurture which is not excellent? Concerning the other branches I may not in a position to say anything, but restricting myself to the two mentions of Jung and Ning, they are those in which, above all others, the education of their children is methodical." "I was just now alluding to none other than these two establishments," Tzu hsing observed with a sigh. "But let me tell you all. In days of yore, the Duke of Ningguo and the Duke of Jungguo were two uterine brothers. The Ning Duke was the elder. He had 4 sons. After the death of the Duke of Ningguo, his eldest son, Chia Tai-hua, came into the title. He also had 2 sons, but the eldest, whose name was Hu, died at the age of 8 or 9. And the only survivor, the second son, Chia Jing, inherited the title. His whole mind is at this time set upon Taoist doctrines. His sole delight is to burn the pill and refine the dual powers, while every other thought finds no place in his mind. Happily he had, at an early age, left a son, Chia Zhen, behind in the lay world, and his father, engrossed as his whole heart was with the idea of attaining spiritual life, ceded the succession of the official title to him. His parent is, besides, not willing to return to the original family seat, but lives outside the walls of the capital, foolishly hobnobbing with all the Taoist priests. This Mr. Zhen had also a son, Chia Rong, who is, at this period, just in his 16th year. Mr. Jing gives at present no attention to anything at all, so that Mr. Zhen naturally devotes no time to his studies, but being bent upon naught else but incessant high pleasure, he would subvert the order of things in the Ningguo mansion, and yet no one can summon the courage to come and hold him in check. But I will now tell you about the Jung mansion for your edification. The strange occurrence, to which I alluded just now, came about in this manner. After the demise of the Jung duke, the eldest son, Chia Tai-shan, inherited the rank. He took to himself as wife the daughter of Marquis Shi, a noble family of Jinling, by whom he had 2 sons, the elder being Chia She, the younger Chia Zhen. This Tai-shan is now dead long ago, but his wife is still alive, and the eldest son, Chia She, succeeded to the degree. He is a man of amiable and genial disposition, but he likewise gives no thought to the direction of any domestic concern. The second son, Chia Zhen, displayed, from his early childhood, a great liking for books, and grew up to be correct and upright in character. His grandfather doted upon him, and would have had him start in life through the arena of public examinations, but, when least expected, Tai-shan, being on the point of death, bequeathed a petition, which was laid before the emperor. His Majesty, out of regard for his former minister, issued immediate commands that the eldest son should inherit the estate, and further inquired how many sons there were besides him, all of whom he at once expressed a wish to be introduced in his imperial presence. His Majesty, moreover, displayed exceptional favour, and conferred upon Mr. Zhen the brevet rank of 2nd-class assistant secretary of a board, and commanded him to enter the board to acquire the necessary experience. He has already now been promoted to the office of 2nd-class secretary. This Mr. Zhen's wife, née Wang, first gave birth to a son called Chia Zhu, who became a licentiate in his 14th year. At barely 20 he married, but fell ill and died soon after the birth of a son. Her, Mrs. Zhen's second child was a daughter, who came into the world, by a strange coincidence, on the first day of the year. She had an unexpected pleasure in the birth and succeeding year of another son, who, still more remarkable to say, had, at the time of his birth, a piece of variegated crystal like a brilliant jade in his mouth, on which were yet visible the outlines of several characters. Now tell me, was not this a novel and strange occurrence, eh?" "Strange indeed!" exclaimed Yü ts'un with a smile. "But I presume the coming experiences of this being will not be mean." Tzu hsing gave a faint smile. "One and all," he remarked, "entertain the same idea. Hence it is that his mother dotes upon him like upon a precious jewel. On the day of his first birthday, Mr. Cheng readily entertained a wish to put the bent of his inclinations to the test, and placed before the child all kinds of things, without number, for him to grasp from. Contrary to every expectation, he scorned every other object, and, stretching forth his hand, he simply took hold of rouge, powder, and a few hairpins, with which he began to play. Mr. Cheng experienced at once displeasure, as he maintained that this youth would, by and by, grow up into a sybarite, devoted to wine and women, and for this reason it is that he soon began to feel not much attachment for him. But his grandmother is the one who, in spite of everything, prizes him like the breath of her own life. The very mention of what happened is even strange. He is now grown up to be 7 or 8 years old, and, although exceptionally wilful, in intelligence and precocity, however, not 1 in 100 could come up to him. And as for the utterances of this child, they are no less remarkable. The bones and flesh of a woman, he argues, are made of water, while those of men of mud. "Women to my eyes are pure and pleasing," he says, "while at the sight of men, I readily feel how corrupt, foul, and repelling they are. Now tell me, are not these words ridiculous? There can be no doubt whatever that he will by and by turn out to be a licentious roué." Yü ts'un, whose countenance suddenly assumed a stern air, promptly interrupted the conversation. "It doesn't quite follow," he suggested. "You people don't, I regret to say, understand the destiny of this child. The fact is that even the old Hanlin scholar Mr. Cheng was erroneously looked upon as a loose rag and dissolute debauchee. But unless a person, through much study of books and knowledge of letters, so increases in lore as to attain the talent of discerning the nature of things, and the vigour of mind to fathom the Taoist reason as well as to comprehend the first principle, he is not in a position to form any judgment." Tzu hsing, upon perceiving the weighty import of what he propounded, "Please explain," he asked hastily, "the drift of your argument." To which Yü ts'un responded, "Of the human beings created by the operation of heaven and earth, if we exclude those who are gifted with extreme benevolence and extreme viciousness, the rest, for the most part, present no striking diversity. If they be extremely benevolent, they fall in, at the time of their birth, with an era of propitious fortune; while those extremely vicious correspond, at the time of their existence, with an era of calamity. When those who coexist with propitious fortune come into life, the world is in order; when those who coexist with unpropitious fortune come into life, the world is in danger. Yao, Shun, Yu, Chen Tang, Wen Wang, Wu Wang, Zhou Gong, Zhao Gong, Confucius, Mencius, Dong Hu, Han Xin, Zhou Zi, Chen Zi, Zhu Zi, and Zhang Zi were ordained to see light in auspicious era; whereas Ch'i Yu, Gong Gong, Jie Wang, Zhou Wang, Shi Huang, Wang Mang, Cao Cao, Huan Wen, An Lu Shan, Qin Kuai, and others were one and all destined to come into the world during a calamitous age. Those endowed with extreme benevolence set the world in order; those possessed of extreme maliciousness turn the world into disorder. Purity, intelligence, spirituality, and subtlety constitute the vital part of right which pervades heaven and earth, and the persons gifted with benevolence are its natural fruit. Malignity and perversity constitute the spirit of evil, which permeates heaven and earth, and malicious persons are affected by its influence. The days of perpetual happiness and eminent good fortune, and the era of perfect peace and tranquillity, which now prevail, are the offsprings of the pure, intelligent, divine, and subtle spirit which ascends above, to the very emperor, and below reaches the rustic and uncultured classes. Every one is without exception under its influence. The superfluity of the subtle spirit expands far and wide, and finding nowhere to betake itself to, becomes, in due course, transformed into dew, or gentle breeze, and by a process of diffusion it pervades the whole world. The spirit of malignity and perversity, unable to expand under the brilliant sky and the transmuting sun, eventually coagulates, pervades and stops up the deep gutters and extensive caverns, and when of a sudden the wind agitates it or it be impelled by the clouds, and any slight disposition on its part supervenes to set itself in motion, or to break its bounds, and so little as even the minutest fraction does unexpectedly find an outlet, and happens to come across any spirit of perception and subtlety which may be at the time passing by, the spirit of right does not yield to the spirit of evil, and the spirit of evil is again envious of the spirit of right, so that the two do not harmonize. Just like wind, water, thunder and lightning, which, when they meet in the bowels of the earth, must necessarily, as they are both to dissolve and are likewise unable to yield, clash and explode to the end that they may at length exhaust themselves. Hence it is that these spirits have also forcibly to diffuse themselves into the human race to find an outlet, so that they may then completely disperse, with the result that men and women are suddenly imbued with these spirits and spring into existence. At best, these human beings cannot be generated into philanthropists or perfect men; at worst, they cannot also embody extreme perversity or extreme wickedness. Yet, placed among 1,000,000 beings, the spirit of intelligence, refinement, perception and subtlety will be above these 1,000,000 beings, while, on the other hand, the perverse, depraved and inhuman embodiment will likewise be below the million of men. Born in a noble and wealthy family, these men will be a salacious, lustful lot; born of literary, virtuous or poor parentage, they will turn out retired scholars or men of mark; though they may by some accident be born in a destitute and poverty-stricken home, they cannot possibly, in fact, ever sink so low as to become runners or menials, or contentedly brook to be of the common herd, or be driven and curbed like a horse in harness. They will become, for certainty, either actors of note, or courtesans of notoriety, as instanced in former years by Hsü Yu, Tao Qian, Yuan Ji, Chi Kang, Liu Ling, the two families of Wang and Hsüeh, Gu Hu Tou, Cheng Hou Chu, Tang Ming Huang, Song Hui Zong, Liu Ting Zhi, Wen Fei Qing, Mi Nan Gong, Shi Man Qing, Liu Shi Qing, and Qin Shao Yu, and exemplified nowadays by Ni Yunling, Tang Bo Hu, Zhu Zhishan, and also by Li Guinian, Huang Panchuo, Jing Xingmo, Zhuo Wenjun, and the women Hong Fu, Xue Tao, Cui Ying, Zhao Yun, and others, all of whom were and are of the same stamp, though placed in different scenes of action. "From what you say," observed Tzu hsing, "success makes a man a duke or a marquis, ruin a thief." "Quite so, that's just my idea," replied Yü ts'un. "I've not as yet let you know that after my degradation from office, I spent the last couple of years in travelling for pleasure all over each province, and that I also myself came across two extraordinary youths. This is why, when a short while back you alluded to this Pao-yü, I at once conjectured, with a good deal of certainty, that he must be a human being of the same stamp. There's no need for me to speak of any farther than the walled city of Chinling. This Mr. Chen was, by imperial appointment, named principal of the government public college of the Chinling province. Do you perhaps know him?" "Who doesn't know him?" remarked Tzu hsing. "This Chen family is an old connection of the Chia family. These two families were on terms of great intimacy, and I myself likewise enjoyed the pleasure of their friendship for many a day." "Last year, when at Chinling," Yü ts'un continued with a smile, "some one recommended me as resident tutor to the school in the Cheng mansion, and when I moved into it, I saw for myself the state of things. Who would ever think that that household was grand and luxurious to such a degree? But they are an affluent family, and withal full of propriety, so that a school like this was of course not one easy to obtain. The pupil, however, was, it is true, a young tyro. but far more troublesome to teach than a candidate for the examination of graduate of the second degree. Were I to enter into details, you would indeed have a laugh. I must need," he explained, "have the company of 2 girls in my studies to enable me to read at all, and to keep likewise my brain clear; otherwise, if left to myself, my head gets all in a muddle." Time after time he further expounded to his young attendants how extremely honorable and extremely pure were the 2 words representing woman, that they are more valuable and precious than the auspicious animal, the felicitous bird, rare flowers, and uncommon plants. "You may not," he was wont to say, "on any account heedlessly utter them, you set of foul mouths and filthy tongues. These 2 words are of the utmost import. Whenever you have occasion to allude to them, you must, before you can do so with impunity, take pure water, and scented tea, and rinse your mouths. In the event of any slip of the tongue, I shall at once have your teeth extracted, and your eyes gouged out." His obstinacy and waywardness are, in every respect, out of the common. After he was allowed to leave school, and to return home, he became, at the sight of the young ladies, so tractable, gentle, sharp, and polite, transformed, in fact, like one of them; and though, for this reason, his father has punished him on more than one occasion, by giving him a sound thrashing, such as brought him the verge of death, he cannot however change. Whenever he was being beaten, and could no more endure the pain, he was wont to promptly break forth in promiscuous loud shouts, "Girls! Girls!" The young ladies, who heard him from the inner chambers, subsequently made fun of him. "Why," they said, "when you are being thrashed and you are in pain, your only thought is to bawl out 'girls'! Is it perchance that you expect us young ladies to go and intercede for you? How is that you have no sense of shame?" To their taunts he gave a most plausible explanation. "Once," he replied, "when in the agony of pain, I gave vent to shouting 'girls,' in the hope, perchance, I did not then know, of its being able to alleviate the soreness. After I had, with this purpose, given one cry, I really felt the pain considerably better; and now that I have obtained this secret spell, I have recourse at once, when I am in the height of anguish, to shouts of 'girls,' one shout after another. Now what do you say to this? Isn't this absurd, eh?" The grandmother is so infatuated by her extreme tenderness for this youth, that, time after time, she has, on her grandson's account, found fault with the tutor, and called her son to task, with the result that I resigned my post and took my leave. A youth with a disposition such as his cannot assuredly either perpetuate intact the state of his father and grandfather, or follow the injunctions of teacher or advice of friends. The pity is, however, that there are, in that family, several excellent female cousins, the like of all of whom it would be difficult to discover." "Quite so," remarked Tzu hsing. "There are now 3 young ladies in the Chia family who are simply perfection itself. The eldest is a daughter of Mr. Cheng, Yuan Ch'un by name, who, on account of her excellence, filial piety, talents, and virtue, has been selected as a governess in the palace. The second is the daughter of Mr. She's handmaid, and is called Ying Ch'un. The third is Tan Ch'un, the child of Mr. Cheng's handmaid, while the fourth is the uterine sister of Mr. Cheng of the Ning mansion. Her name is Hsi Ch'un. As dowager lady Shih is so fondly attached to her granddaughters, they come, for the most part, over to their grandmother's place to prosecute their studies together, and each one of these girls is, I hear, without a fault." "More admirable," observed Yü ts'un, "is the regime adhered to in the Chen family, where the names of the female children have all been selected from the list of male names, and are unlikely all those out of the way names, such as spring blossom, scented gem, and the like flowery terms in vogue in other families. But how is it that the Chia family have likewise fallen into this common practice?" "Not so," ventured Tzu hsing. "It is simply because the eldest daughter was born on the first of the first moon, that the name of Yuan Ch'un was given to her, while with the rest, this character Ch'un (spring) was then followed. The names of the senior generation are, in like manner, adopted from those of their brothers. And there is at present an instance in support of this. The wife of your present worthy master, Mr. Lin, is the uterine sister of Mr. Chia. She and Mr. Chia Zhen, and she went, while at home, under the name of Chia Min. Should you question the truth of what I say, you are at liberty, on your return, to make minute inquiries, and you'll be convinced." Yü ts'un clapped his hands and said smiling, "It's so, I know; for this female pupil of mine, whose name is Tai-yü, invariably pronounces the character Min as Mi, whenever she comes across it in the course of her reading; while, in writing, when she comes to the character Min, she likewise reduces the strokes by one, sometimes by two. Often have I speculated in my mind as to the cause, but the remarks I've heard you mention convince me, without doubt, that it is no other reason than that of reverence to her mother's name. Strange enough, this pupil of mine is unique in her speech and deportment, and in no way like any ordinary young lady. But considering that her mother was no commonplace woman herself, it is natural that she should have given birth to such a child. Besides, knowing, as I do now, that she is the granddaughter of the Jung family, it is no matter of surprise to me that she is what she is. Poor girl! Her mother, after all, died in the course of the last month." Tzu hsing heaved a sigh. "Of 3 elderly sisters," he explained, "this one was the youngest, and she too is gone. Of the sisters of the senior generation, not one even survives. But now we'll see what the husbands of this younger generation will be like by and by." "Yes," replied Yü ts'un. "But some while back you mentioned that Mr. Cheng has had a son, born with a piece of jade in his mouth, and that he has besides a tender-aged grandson left by his eldest son; but is it likely that this Mr. She has not, himself, as yet, had any male issue?" "After Mr. Cheng had this son with the jade," Tzu hsing added, "his handmaid gave birth to another son, who, whether he be good or bad, I don't at all know. At all events, he has by his side 2 sons and a grandson, but what these will grow up to be by and by, I cannot tell. As regards Mr. Chia She, he too has had 2 sons, the second of whom, Chia Lien, is by this time about 20. He took to wife a relative of his, a niece of Mr. Cheng's wife, a Miss Wang, and has now been married for the last 2 years. This Mr. Lien has lately obtained by purchase the rank of sub-prefect. He too takes little pleasure in books, but as far as worldly affairs go, he is so versatile and glib of tongue that he has recently taken up his quarters with his uncle Mr. Cheng, to whom he gives a helping hand in the management of domestic matters. Who would have thought it, however, ever since his marriage with his worthy wife, not a single person, whether high or low, has there been who has not looked up to her with regard; with the result that Mr. Lien himself has, in fact, had to take a back seat, literally withdrew 35 li. In looks she is also so extremely beautiful; in speech so extremely quick and fluent; in ingenuity so deep and astute, that even a man could, in no way, come up to her mark." After hearing these remarks, Yü ts'un smiled. "You now perceive," he said, "that my argument is no fallacy, and that the several persons about whom you and I have just been talking are, we may presume, human beings who, one and all, have been generated by the spirit of right and the spirit of evil, and come to life by the same royal road. But of course there's no saying." "Enough," cried Tzu hsing, "of right and enough of evil! We've been doing nothing but settling other people's accounts. Come now, have another glass, and you'll be the better for it." "While bent upon talking," Yü ts'un explained, "I've had more glasses than is good for me." "Speaking of irrelevant matters about other people," Tzu hsing rejoined complacently, "is quite the thing to help us swallow our wine. So come now, what harm would happen if we do have a few glasses more?" Yü ts'un thereupon looked out of the window. "The day is also far advanced," he remarked, "and if we don't take care, the gates will be closing. Let us leisurely enter the city, and as we go along, there will be nothing to prevent us from continuing our chat." Forthwith the two friends arose from their seats, settled and paid their wine bill, and were just going, when they unexpectedly heard some one from behind say with a loud voice: "Accept my congratulations, brother Yü ts'un. I've now come, with the express purpose of giving you the welcome news." Yü ts'un lost no time in turning his head round to look at the speaker. But reader, if you wish to learn who the man was, listen to the details given in the following chapter. Section 5